Priorities, she said. That single word, that one clean surgical word that sliced through 40 years of motherhood and left me standing in my daughter's hallway with nowhere to sit. Let me back up. My name is Brittany Morrison. I'm 67 years old, and until Christmas Day 2025, I believed my daughter Claire still loved me. Not in the way you love someone out of obligation or guilt, but truly loved me the way family is supposed to love family. I should have known something was wrong when the invitation came via text message. 3 days before Christmas. No phone call, no warmth, just 15 cold words on a screen. Mom, come over on the 25th at noon. Family lunch. I sent back a heart emoji. She didn't respond, but I told myself it didn't matter. I was going to be there. I spent 2 full days preparing. I baked my mother's sweet bread recipe, the one Claire used to beg me to make when she was little. She'd stand on a step stool next to me, flour dusting her nose, stealing raisins from the bowl when she thought I wasn't looking. I wrapped the loaves in checkered cloth and tied them with red ribbon. I bought a bottle of Bordeaux, the expensive kind I'd been saving all year, waiting for a special occasion. Christmas with my daughter, my son-in-law, my granddaughters. That seemed special enough. The morning of the 25th, I stood in front of my closet for 20 minutes trying to decide what to wear. Something festive but not too formal. Something that said, I'm so glad to be here, without looking desperate. I settled on a navy dress with small white flowers, my good pearl earrings, a touch of lipstick, not too much. I wanted to look like I'd made an effort, but not like I was trying too hard. I took the bus across town. My hands were full 2 canvas bags with the bread and wine, my purse slung over my shoulder, and this tightness in my chest I couldn't quite name. Hope, maybe, or the fear that comes with hoping when you've been disappointed before. The neighborhood had changed. Claire and Jason's new place was in a development I barely recognized, identical houses with perfect lawns, holiday decorations that looked professionally installed. Their house was the 3rd from the corner number 482 Liberty Avenue. I'd only been here once before 2 months ago when they'd first moved in. Claire had given me a rushed 10-minute tour before saying she had errands to run. I rang the doorbell at exactly noon. Always on time, that's what my mother taught me. Through the frosted glass, I could see movement, hear laughter, Christmas music playing, voices layered over each other in that particular way that meant people were comfortable, happy home. The door swung open. Jason stood there, a wine glass already in his hand, wearing a red sweater that looked brand new. He smiled, but it didn't quite reach his eyes. That should have been my first clue. Brittany, right on time. He leaned in for a quick kiss on the cheek, barely making contact. Come on in. He took 1 step back, not enough room for me to enter comfortably, so I had to sort of squeeze past him. He didn't offer to take my bags, didn't comment on the bread or the wine, just stood there, one hand on the door, already looking back toward the dining room. The house smelled like roasted turkey and cinnamon, expensive candles burning somewhere, the kind that cost $30 each. Everything gleamed, the hardwood floors, the mirrors on the walls, the massive chandelier hanging in the entryway. It was beautiful. Perfect. Like something from a magazine. Shoes off or on? I asked, noticing Jason's feet in house slippers. Oh, he glanced down. Either is fine, which meant off. I set my bags down, crouched awkwardly to unlace my boots. Jason shifted his weight, impatient, his eyes flickering toward the dining room again. When I stood up, he was already walking away. Everyone's in here, he called over his shoulder. I picked up my bags and followed him down the hallway. Family photos lined the walls, Claire and Jason's wedding professional portraits of the girls' vacation shots from places I'd never been invited to. I searched for my face in the frames, found nothing. The hallway opened into a large open-plan living and dining area. And that's when I saw it. The table. 6 chairs around an oval dining table, every single one occupied. At the head sat Claire, my daughter. 34 years old, wearing a cream-colored sweater I'd never seen before, her hair blown out in perfect waves. She was ladling mashed potatoes onto a plate, laughing at something someone had said. At the opposite end, Jason returned to his seat, picking up his wine glass. On one side, Diana Palmer and her husband Richard, Jason's parents. Diana wore a silk blouse, the color of burgundy wine, her hair freshly dyed, that unnatural mahogany shade, her lips painted bright red. Richard, tall, thick mustache, the kind of man who takes up space without trying, was already cutting into his turkey. On the other side, my granddaughters. Sophie, 8 years old, with a red velvet bow in her dark hair. Emma 6, wearing a white lace dress I'd bought her 3 months ago for her birthday. I'd mailed it with a card that said, "For my precious girl." Claire had texted back, "Got it. Thanks." Sophie saw me first. Her face lit up, her hand starting to rise in a wave. "Sophie," Claire's voice was gentle but firm. "Hands in your lap until we're done serving." Sophie's hand dropped. She looked down at her plate. I stood there at the entrance to the dining room, my bags hanging from my aching hands, my coat still buttoned, and nobody got up. Nobody offered me a seat. Nobody said, "Mom, we're so glad you're here." They just kept eating, talking, existing in this perfect Christmas tableau like I was invisible. "Mom," Claire finally looked up, noticing me. She smiled, one of those smiles you give to someone who's arrived unannounced. "How great that you came. How great that I came." To the Christmas lunch she'd invited me to. "I brought sweet bread," I said, my voice sounding strange in my own ears. "And wine." "Oh." She nodded, not looking at the bags. "Thanks. Just leave it in the kitchen." Just leave it in the kitchen. Not let me take it from you. Not how thoughtful. Just leave it. I walked toward the kitchen on legs that didn't quite feel like mine. Behind me, I heard Diana laugh, a practiced musical sound. Someone clinked silverware against china. The conversation continued as if I'd never entered. The kitchen was spotless. White marble countertops, stainless steel appliances, fresh flowers in a vase by the window. I set my bags down carefully, quietly, trying not to intrude on the perfection. I stood there for a moment, one hand on the cool marble breathing. When I returned to the dining room, Claire was serving green beans. Jason was carving more turkey. Diana was telling a story about their cruise to Alaska. Oh, it was divine, absolutely divine. The girls were playing with their napkins, folding and unfolding them. I cleared my throat. "Claire," she looked up, a serving spoon paused midair. "Where do I sit?" The question hung in the air. 5 seconds. 10. The kind of silence that stretches and warps until you're not sure if time is still passing normally. Claire blinked. She looked at the table, 6 chairs, 6 people, then back at me. And in her eyes I saw it. That flash of something. Not malice. Worse. Discomfort. Like I was a problem she hadn't figured out how to solve. "Mom?" Her voice went softer, the way you talk to a child who doesn't understand something obvious. "It's just that we organized the table differently this year." Differently. As if seating arrangements were a matter of preference, like choosing between red wine and white. "There are 6 chairs," I said. The words came out flat, factual. "There are 6 of you." "I know." She set the spoon down, wiped her hands on a napkin, avoiding my eyes now. "It's just that Diana came from very far away. It's been years since she spent Christmas with Jason. So we decided that, well, that this year would be special for them." Special for them. "And me," the words escaped before I could stop them. Claire sighed. The kind of sigh that says, "Please don't make this harder than it already is." "Mom, don't take it personally. It's just that this year we wanted it to be more intimate. Just the people who really matter. You know?" She paused, searching for the right word. Found it. "Priorities. Priorities." She said it so naturally, so casually, like it was reasonable, like it made perfect sense that after 67 years of life, 40 years of sacrifice, 8 years of writing checks and sending money and being there whenever she called, I wasn't a priority. Jason placed a plate piled with turkey in front of Diana. She touched his hand, smiled up at him with such warmth. "Thank you, sweetheart." Richard raised his wine glass. "To family," he announced, his voice booming. "To being together." Everyone raised their glasses. Everyone except me. Because I didn't have a glass. Because I didn't have a chair. Because I didn't have a place. I stood there watching my daughter's perfect Christmas lunch continue without me. Sophie had started eating, cutting her turkey into tiny pieces. Emma was pushing peas around her plate with her fork. Neither of them looked at me. Neither of them asked why Grandma was standing while everyone else was sitting. Diana caught my eye for just a moment. There was something in her expression, not quite triumph, not quite pity. Satisfaction, maybe. The look of someone who'd won a competition I hadn't known we were in. She raised her glass toward Claire. "Darling, everything is delicious. Thank you for having us like this. It's been so long since I felt like family." Claire beamed. "It's a pleasure, Diana. You are our priority." That word again. Priority. I felt something crack inside my chest. Not break, not yet. Just crack. like ice on a frozen lake when you step somewhere you shouldn't. Mom, Claire was looking at me again, and I could see the calculation in her eyes, the weighing of options. If you want, you can wait in the living room for a while. We'll talk after lunch. After lunch, as if I were a neighbor who'd dropped by, as if my presence were a courtesy visit, a minor inconvenience to be dealt with later. I looked at Sophie, at Emma, my granddaughters, the girls I'd held when they were hours old, the girls whose birthday parties I'd never missed, whose school events I'd attended even when Claire couldn't. They didn't look at me now. They'd been trained well. Of course, I said. My voice came out steady, which surprised me. After lunch. I took one step backward, then another. No one turned around. No one called me back. The conversation had already moved on. Jason was talking about a golf trip. Diana was asking about spring break plans. I walked back down that hallway with the photos that didn't include me, past the door where I'd left my boots, into the living room where everything was white and gray and perfect and cold. My purse. Where was my purse? I found it on the entryway table right where I'd set it when I came in. My hands were shaking as I opened it, pulled out my phone. Standing in the hallway of my daughter's house, the house whose rent I'd been paying for 2 years, though she didn't know that I made the most important decision of my life. I opened my banking app, Teep, found the automatic transfer, $1.200 every month scheduled for the first of the month going directly into Claire's account. I'd set it up 5 years ago when she'd called me crying, when she'd said they couldn't make ends meet, when she'd said she needed help just temporarily. Temporarily had turned into 60 monthly payments, $72,000 over 5 years, not including the wedding, not including the emergencies, not including Christmas and birthdays and school supplies and clothes for the girls. I canceled the transfer. The app asked, "Are you sure?" I clicked yes. Then I pulled up the credit card accounts. 3 additional cards issued under my account, all in Claire's name. I'd given them to her 3 years ago when she said the grocery bills were too high, when she said she needed backup in case of emergencies. I'd watched the charges pile up: boutique clothing stores, fancy restaurants, ski trips I'd never been invited on. I canceled all 3 cards. The system asked, "Are you sure you want to cancel these cards?" Yes. Yes, I was sure. Then I called my bank. A real person answered on the 3rd ring. "I need to terminate a lease," I said. My voice was calm, surprisingly calm. "482 Liberty Avenue. The contract is under my name." "And you're the primary leaseholder?" the voice asked. "Yes, Brittany Morrison. Everything is under my name." "May I ask the reason for termination?" "Personal reasons." There was typing, clicking. "I see the lease here. You've been paying 2/100 monthly for 24 months. You understand there may be penalties for early termination. I understand. I want to proceed." "Are you absolutely certain?" Everyone kept asking me if I was certain, as if I were some confused old woman who didn't know her own mind. "Completely certain," I said. More typing. "The termination notice will be sent to the property owner and the current occupants within 48 hours. They'll have 30 days to either sign a new lease directly or vacate the premises." "Thank you." I hung up. My hands had stopped shaking. In fact, I felt strangely steady, clear-headed, like I'd been walking through fog for years and had suddenly stepped into bright, harsh sunlight. Behind me, through the walls, I could hear them laughing. Diana's voice rising above the others, telling some story. Claire's laughter joining in. The scrape of chairs, the clink of glasses. Christmas continuing exactly as planned. I looked down at my phone. No texts, no missed calls. Claire hadn't even noticed I'd left the room. I picked up my purse, put on my coat, buttoned it slowly, deliberately. Then I walked to the front door and opened it. The cold December air hit my face like a slap. It was starting to snow, light flurries that wouldn't stick, but enough to make everything look clean and new. I stepped outside, closed the door behind me. Gently. No slam, no drama, no scene. I walked down their perfectly shoveled driveway, past their perfectly decorated lawn, onto the sidewalk where Christmas lights twinkled from every house. Families were inside eating together, laughing together. Children were opening presents. Parents were taking photos. I walked alone. But for the first time in years, maybe the first time in decades, I walked with my back straight. They didn't know it yet, but I had just closed all the doors that kept their life running. And what would come next was going to make them run after me. But by then I wouldn't be waiting anymore. I walked 6 blocks before I realized I was trembling. Not from the cold, I barely felt the temperature. From everything that had just happened. From everything I'd kept silent about for so long. There was a bus stop ahead with a covered bench. I sat down heavily, my legs suddenly weak. Set my purse beside me. Looked at my hands spotted with age veins prominent under thin skin. When had I gotten old? When had I become someone who could be dismissed so easily? I pulled out my phone again. Checked the banking app one more time, making sure it was real. The transfers were canceled. The cards were canceled. The lease termination was in process. $1.200 monthly. $14.400 a year. 5 years. $72,000 that Claire never knew came from me. But it was more than that. Wasn't it? It had always been more than that. I closed my eyes and the memories came flooding back. Not the sweet ones. Not the baby pictures, or the first day of school, or the graduation. The other ones. The ones that hurt. It started 8 years ago. Claire was 26, fresh off a difficult divorce from a man who'd left her with debt and a broken heart. I'd held her while she cried. Told her she deserved better. Meant it. Then she met Jason at a friend's wedding. He was quiet, polite, worked for an insurance company making a decent salary. Claire lit up when she talked about him. After years of watching her struggle, seeing her happy again was worth everything. They got engaged 6 months later. Came to my apartment on a Sunday afternoon, both of them glowing. "Mom, we're getting married," Claire said, showing me the ring, a simple solitaire, modest but pretty. I hugged her, cried tears of joy. "All I want is for you to be happy, honey." "I am Mom. Jason is different. He takes care of me." They wanted a small wedding. Claire came to me a month before the date, sitting at my kitchen table with her laptop open, spreadsheets glowing on the screen. "Mom, Jason is saving money for an apartment. We don't want to go into debt for the wedding. Is there any way you could—" I hate to ask, but I didn't let her finish. "How much do you need?" "Maybe $5,000 for the venue and food." I wrote a check for $18,000. Paid for the dress that made her look like a princess. Paid for the reception hall with the crystal chandeliers. Paid for the catering, the flowers, the photographer. Paid for all of it. Claire cried when I gave her the check. Hugged me tight. "You're the best mom in the world. I'll pay you back, I promise." "You don't need to pay me back. This is my gift." Jason thanked me too, though his smile looked forced. But I told myself he was just stressed about the wedding, about starting a new life. 6 months after the wedding, Sophie was born. A beautiful baby girl with dark hair and Claire's eyes. I went to the hospital the day after the delivery, brought flowers and baby clothes and casseroles for their freezer. Claire looked exhausted. Beautiful, but exhausted. "I'm going to take a year off work," she told me. "Maybe more. Jason's salary covers rent and basics, but it's tight." It was more than tight. I found out later Jason was making $2,800 a month. Their rent was $1,500. That left $1,300 for everything else: food, utilities, car payment, insurance, baby supplies. It was mathematically impossible. So I started visiting every week, bringing diapers in bulk from Costco, bringing groceries. "Oh, I bought too much, Claire. Would you mind taking some?" Bringing clothes for Sophie that I'd found on sale. Claire accepted everything with tired smiles and distracted thank yous. She was overwhelmed with new motherhood, I told myself. She'd appreciate it more later. When Sophie was 8 months old, I arrived for my weekly visit to find Claire sitting on the floor of her tiny apartment, surrounded by bills, crying. "We can't make it, Mom." She looked up at me with red, swollen eyes. "We can't make it to the end of the month. The credit cards are maxed out. Jason asked for a raise and they said no. I don't know what to do." I sat down next to her on that cheap laminate floor, put my arm around her shoulders. "How much do you need?" She shook her head. "I can't ask you for more. You've already done so much." "Tell me how much." $1,000. Just for this month. Just to catch up. I'll pay you back. I promise." I took out my checkbook right there. Wrote $1,200. "Don't pay me back. Use it for Sophie." Claire sobbed into my shoulder. "You're the best mom in the world." That $1,000 turned into the next month and the next and the next. Every time I asked if they could manage on their own, Claire found a reason. Sophie was sick. Jason lost a commission. The rent went up. The car broke down. I always said yes, because she was my daughter, because Sophie was my granddaughter, because I wanted them to be okay. When Emma was born 2 years later, things got worse. Jason's salary hadn't increased. Claire couldn't go back to work. Childcare for 2 children would cost more than she'd earn. They were drowning. The monthly checks increased. Sometimes $1,200, sometimes $1,500, sometimes $2,000. Christmas birthdays, school supplies, medical bills. I paid for everything. And Claire always thanked me. Always said it was temporary. Always promised things would get better. They never did. 2 years ago, Claire called me excited for the first time in months. "Mom, we found a beautiful apartment. 3 bedrooms, safe neighborhood, good school district. The girls could have their own room." "That's wonderful, honey. Can you afford it?" A pause. "The rent is $2,100 a month. Jason's still making about the same. We'd only have $700 left after rent." She didn't ask directly. She didn't have to. I understood the question beneath the words. "What if I paid the rent?" I heard myself say. "Just temporarily, until Jason's situation improves." "Mom, I couldn't ask you to." "You're not asking. I'm offering. Let me do this for my granddaughters." So I called the landlord, signed the lease under my name, paid the deposit first month last month, set up automatic payments from my account. "Just until Jason gets something better," Claire said. "I promise we'll pay you back." That was 24 months ago. 24 payments of $2, $100, $50, $400. Jason never got something better. Claire never mentioned paying me back. And I never said anything, because I thought this was what mothers did. I thought this was what love looked like. The bus arrived. I rode it home in a daze, watching the city lights blur past the windows. Other passengers got on and off, families laden with shopping bags, couples holding hands, teenagers laughing at their phones. Everyone had somewhere to be. Everyone belonged somewhere. I got off at my stop and walked the 2 blocks to my apartment building. It was one of the older buildings downtown, rent-controlled, the kind of place I'd lived in for 20 years because it was affordable and safe. Claire used to visit all the time when she was younger. Back then, she'd curl up on my couch with tea and tell me about her day, her dreams, her fears. When had she stopped visiting, I unlocked my door, stepped into the silence. 1-bedroom apartment. Clean but worn. Furniture I'd had for decades. Photos on every surface: Claire as a baby, Claire's first day of school, Claire's high school graduation. Claire, Claire, Claire. And now, standing in my living room with my coat still on, I realized something that made my knees weak. There were no photos of me in Claire's house. Not one. I sat on the couch, didn't turn on the lights, just sat there in the growing darkness as snow continued to fall outside my window. My phone buzzed. My heart jumped. Maybe Claire had noticed I'd left. Maybe she was calling to apologize. Maybe it was a spam text about car insurance. I set the phone on the coffee table and watched it like it might suddenly come to life, willing it to ring, willing my daughter to notice I was gone. It didn't ring. 3 days passed. 72 hours of silence. I didn't call Claire. I didn't text. I waited for her to reach out to ask if I'd gotten home safely, to thank me for the sweet bread and wine I'd left in her kitchen. Nothing. On December 28th, I received an email from my bank confirming the cancellation of the additional credit cards. The system had processed it immediately. Claire's cards would have stopped working within 48 hours. I imagined her at a store, card declined at the register. The embarrassment, the confusion. Surely she'd call me then. She didn't. On December 30th, another email arrived. This one from the property management company. The lease termination notice had been sent to both the owner and the current residents at 482 Liberty Avenue. They had 30 days to respond. I sat at my kitchen table with my morning coffee, the cheap kind, not the fancy brand I used to buy, before I started supporting Claire, and read the email 3 times. Current residents will have the option to negotiate a new lease directly with the property owner or vacate the premises by January 30th, 2026. January 30th, 32 days away. Claire had 32 days to figure out how to pay $2,100 a month or find a new place to live. My phone sat next to my coffee cup, silent as a stone. On January 3rd, 2026, 9 days after Christmas, my phone finally buzzed with a text from Claire. "Mom, there's an error with my card. Can you check it?" Not "How are you?" Not "Merry belated Christmas." Not "I'm sorry we didn't have room for you at the table." Just "Can you check my card?" I stared at the message for a full minute. Then I marked it as read and set my phone down. 2 hours later, another text: "Mom, I really need you to check." Card was declined at the grocery store. It's urgent. Urgent. Everything was always urgent when she needed something. I didn't respond. That evening she called. 4 times in a row. I watched my phone light up, vibrate, go dark. Light up again. Each time I felt that crack in my chest widen a little more. On the 5th call, she left a voicemail. I listened to it once. Mom, I don't know what's going on. My card isn't working. The bank says it's been canceled. Do you know anything about this? Call me, please. I deleted the message. The next day, January 4th, I received a text from an unknown number, Mrs. Morrison. This is the property manager at 482 Liberty Avenue. I've been trying to reach Mrs. Palmer regarding the lease termination. She hasn't responded to 3 calls and 2 emails. Do you have alternate contact information? So Claire had received the notice. She'd seen it, read it, and still she hadn't called me to ask what was happening. I texted back, I'm no longer involved with that property. Please contact the residents directly. That evening, my phone rang. Claire again. This time I answered. Mom, her voice was tight, controlled. We need to talk. Hello, Claire. What's going on? My cards aren't working, and I got this bizarre letter from the landlord about the lease ending. Is this some kind of mistake? I looked out my window at the city lights. No mistake. Silence. Then, what do you mean, no mistake? I mean, I canceled the cards. They were extensions of my account, and I terminated the lease. It was in my name. She stopped. I could hear her breathing fast and shallow. Why would you do that? Because they were mine to cancel. But Mom, I don't understand. Why wouldn't you tell me first? Why wouldn't you warn me? The question hung between us. Why wouldn't I warn her? Why wouldn't I give her a heads up before pulling the rug out from under her feet? Did you warn me before you gave my seat to Diana? My voice came out quieter than I intended. Did you tell me in advance that I wasn't a priority? Oh my God, she exhaled sharply. This is about Christmas. Are you seriously punishing me because I'm not punishing you, Claire? I'm just stopping. I'm stopping the money, the support, the pretending that everything is fine when it hasn't been fine for a very long time. Mom, I don't have time for this emotional manipulation. I have real problems. The landlord says we need to sign a new lease at $2,100 a month or we have to leave. Jason doesn't make enough to cover that. We can't afford to move. What am I supposed to do? Real problems. My feelings were emotional manipulation, but her housing crisis was a real problem. I suppose you'll figure it out, I said, the way other adults figure things out. I can't believe you're doing this. After everything, after I've tried so hard to... She stopped herself. To what Claire tried so hard to what? Nothing. Forget it. Just can we meet? Can we talk about this in person, not over the phone? I thought about it. Pictured sitting across from her at some coffee shop, watching her cry, feeling myself soften and give in like I always did. If you want to talk, you come here, to my apartment. Fine, I'll come tomorrow. No, Monday, January 20th, 2 o'clock. That gave her 17 days to sit with it. 17 days to feel what it was like when the money stopped flowing. That's more than 2 weeks away. Yes. Mom, I need to figure this out before... Then figure it out, Claire. You're a grown woman. You have a husband. Figure it out together. I hung up before she could respond. My hands were shaking. My heart was pounding. But underneath the fear and guilt, I felt something else. Something I hadn't felt in years. Power. On January 5th, a text came from a number I didn't recognize. Mrs. Morrison, this is Emily Chen. I don't know if you remember me. I was your neighbor 10 years ago on Maple Street. I got your number from the building management. I need to talk to you. It's important. Please call me. Emily Chen. The name took a moment to place, and then I remembered. Young woman newly divorced with a 3-year-old daughter named Lily. She'd moved into the apartment below mine, looking shell-shocked and defeated. I'd brought her casseroles, watched Lily when Emily had court dates, listened when she needed to cry. She'd moved away 6 years ago when she got a better job. We'd lost touch. I called the number. Mrs. Morrison. Her voice was warm, professional. Thank you so much for calling back. Emily, how are you? I'm good. Really good, actually. I've been trying to find you for months. I moved cities and lost your contact, but I never forgot what you did for me. It was nothing, dear. It was everything to me. Mrs. Morrison, I'm a family lawyer now. I have my own firm. And if you ever need legal help with anything at all, I want to help you. No cost. It's the least I can do. A family lawyer. I felt something shift in my chest. That's very kind of you, Emily. I mean it. Estate planning, family disputes, contracts, whatever you need. She paused. Is everything okay? You sound tired. I looked around my quiet apartment, at the photos of Claire that covered every surface, at the life I'd built around being her mother, her safety net, her bank. Everything is changing, I said. Well, I'm here, for whatever you need. I'm texting you my information right now. Office cell email. Don't hesitate. We hung up, and seconds later her contact information appeared on my phone. Emily Chen, partner Chen and Associates, Family Law. I saved it. Something told me I'd need it soon. The days crept by. I watched my phone obsessively swinging between hoping Claire would call and dreading that she would. She didn't call, but the evidence of my absence appeared in small ways. On January 8th, my bank notified me that someone had tried to use one of the canceled credit cards. Transaction denied. On January 10th, the property manager emailed again, still unable to reach current residents. They have 20 days remaining. Please advise. On January 15th, I received a call from an unknown number. I let it go to voicemail. It was Diana Palmer. Brittany, this is Diana. Claire is very upset. I don't know what's going on between you two, but you need to call your daughter and work this out. She has 2 little girls who need stability. Whatever you're angry about, this isn't the way to handle it. Call me back if you'd like to talk. I deleted the message. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about Sophie and Emma. Were they scared? Did they know something was wrong? Did they miss me? Did they ask about me? At 2 a.m., I got up and made tea. Sat at my kitchen table with an old photo album. Pictures of Claire through the years. Baby Claire in my arms. Toddler Claire on her first bike. 10-year-old Claire at her piano recital. Teenage Claire rolling her eyes at my camera. When had I become invisible to her? When had I stopped being a person and become just a resource? January 20th arrived gray and cold. I spent the morning cleaning my apartment, not because it was dirty, but because I needed something to do with my hands. At 1:45, I made tea, sat on the couch, waited. At 2:03, there was a knock on my door. Claire stood in the hallway, looking nothing like the perfectly put-together woman from Christmas. Her hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail, no makeup. She wore sweatpants and an old jacket, dark circles under her eyes. "Hi, Mom. Come in." She entered slowly, looking around like she barely remembered the place. I realized she hadn't been here in over a year, maybe longer. She didn't sit down, just stood in the middle of my living room, arms crossed. "So," she said, "are you going to tell me what this is about?" I stayed seated, kept my voice level. What is about? You know what? The cards, the apartment, all of it. I already told you. I canceled things that were mine to cancel. Without warning, without talking to me first. Like you talked to me before Christmas, I met her eyes. Before you gave my chair to someone else and told me I wasn't a priority. She closed her eyes. "Mom, I've apologized for that." "No, you haven't. You told me not to take it personally. Because I didn't want you to, it wasn't meant to hurt you. But it did hurt me, Claire." My voice cracked. "It hurt me more than you can possibly imagine." She looked down. "I know, and I'm sorry. But what you're doing now, this is so much worse. Do you know what position you've put me in? The landlord wants us to sign a new lease or leave. Jason and I went to 3 banks trying to get a loan. We were denied everywhere. We're looking at apartments in terrible neighborhoods because that's all we can afford. Sophie is going to have to change schools. Emma cries every night because she doesn't understand why we're packing boxes." Each word was meant to wound me. Each word was meant to make me feel guilty enough to give in. I took a slow breath. "How much is the rent on the new apartment?" "Why does that matter?" "How much, Claire?" $2,100 a month. "And Jason makes $2,800. She said it defensively like I was attacking her husband. "So that would leave you with $700 for everything else. Food, utilities, car payments, insurance, clothes, activities for the girls. We'll make it work. Jason's looking for something better, and I might go back to work part-time." These were the same promises she'd been making for 8 years. "Claire," I stood up, walked to my desk, pulled out a folder I'd prepared. "Do you know how much money I've given you?" "I don't know. I've lost track. But I'm grateful for all of it. $72,000 in monthly transfers over 5 years. $18,000 for your wedding. $50,400 for rent over 2 years. I opened the folder, showed her the printed bank statements. That's $140,400, not counting the extras, not counting Christmas, birthdays, emergencies, clothes for the girls, groceries I brought every week. Her face went pale. I didn't know it was that much. Because you never asked. You never wanted to know where the money came from. I thought Jason was what making enough, Claire. You knew what Jason made. You had to know the numbers didn't add up. She looked at the papers in my hands like they might bite her. Did you keep track of everything like some kind of ledger? Yes, I kept track. Because I'm careful. Because I budget. Because that's what you have to do when you're living on a fixed income and supporting your daughter's entire life. I never asked you to do that. My voice rose. You didn't have to ask. You just cried and said you couldn't make rent, and I wrote a check. You said you needed help just this once, and I set up automatic transfers. You found an apartment you couldn't afford, and I signed the lease in my name. I stopped, breathing hard. You didn't ask because you didn't have to. You knew I'd say yes. She stared at me. So what, you're just going to abandon me? Your own daughter? Abandon? The word came out sharp as glass. Claire, you're 34 years old. You have a husband. You're not a child anymore. Stopping financial support isn't abandonment. It's called being an adult. You don't understand what it's like to have kids, to have expenses. I raised you alone. The words exploded out of me. Your father died when you were 12. I worked 2 jobs. I skipped meals so you could have new school clothes. I drove a car that barely ran so I could pay for your college. Don't tell me I don't understand. Tears were streaming down her face now. So this is punishment for Christmas, for not being grateful enough. This isn't punishment. My voice dropped. This is me choosing myself for once. This is me deciding that I matter too, that my retirement fund matters, that my life matters, that being treated like a person instead of an ATM matters. I never treated you like an ATM. Really, when's the last time you called me just to see how I was doing? When's the last time you invited me to something, anything that didn't involve me bringing food or money or gifts? When's the last time you asked about my life? She opened her mouth, closed it. No answer. You gave my seat to Diana, I continued quietly. You told me she was the priority. Fine. Let her help you now. Let her pay your rent. Let her be grandma. I'm done. You don't mean that. I do. She wiped her face with her sleeve. What about Sophie and Emma? Are you going to abandon them too? The question hit exactly where she meant it to, but I'd been preparing for it. I love those girls more than anything, but you're using them as shields, Claire. You're using them to manipulate me, and I won't let you do that anymore. I can't believe this. I can't believe my own mother is doing this to me. She grabbed her purse, headed for the door, turned back. You know what? You're selfish. You've always been selfish. That's why Dad... She stopped, but too late. That's why Dad what? My voice was ice. Nothing. Say it, Claire. That's why Dad left. That's why he couldn't stand being around you. The room went silent. So silent I could hear the clock ticking on the wall. Your father, I said slowly, didn't leave. Your father died of a heart attack in a hospital room while you were on your honeymoon with Jason. I was there. I held his hand. I closed his eyes. I paid for the funeral. You arrived 3 days later, and the first thing you asked me, the very first thing, was whether he'd left any life insurance. Claire's face crumbled. That's not... It is true. You know it's true. She backed toward the door, shaking her head. I'm going to figure this out. Without you. Good. I hope you do. She opened the door, paused. I had everything planned. Diana was going to help with the girls so I could work. Jason was going to get promoted. We were going to be fine. And you've ruined everything. No, Claire, you ruined it when you decided I didn't matter enough to have a seat at your table. She left. The door closed behind her with a soft click. I stood there for a long time, listening to her footsteps fade down the hallway, waiting to feel regret, guilt, the urge to run after her. It didn't come. Instead, I felt something I hadn't felt in 8 years. Free. The next 3 days were eerily quiet. No calls, no texts, no drama. On January 23rd, Emily Chen called me. Mrs. Morrison, I got an alert from the courthouse. There's been a filing related to your name. My stomach dropped. What kind of filing? Your daughter filed a lawsuit. She's alleging family abandonment and seeking a court order requiring you to continue financial support. The words didn't make sense at first. She's suing me, her own mother. I'm afraid so. The claim is that you created a financial dependency over years and then suddenly withdrew support without warning, leaving her in an untenable position. Emily's voice was gentle. Mrs. Morrison, can you come to my office today? We need to prepare a response. I arrived at Emily's office at 3 p.m. It was in a modern building, downtown glass and chrome and professional efficiency. Emily met me in the lobby, hugged me like I was family. Come on, let's talk in my office. We sat on either side of a large desk. Emily pulled out a folder. First, I need you to know this lawsuit has no legal merit. You're not obligated to support your adult child, but we still need to respond and we need to do it properly. She opened the folder. Tell me everything, from the beginning. So I did. I told her about the wedding, the checks, the monthly transfers, the lease I'd signed. I showed her the bank statements, the receipts, the documented trail of 8 years of financial support. Emily took notes, asked questions, built our case. This is actually going to work in our favor, she said finally. We can demonstrate that you went above and beyond any parental obligation, that every dollar was voluntary, that you had every right to stop at any time. What about Sophie and Emma? Can she claim I'm hurting them? She can claim it, but it won't hold up. They have 2 parents. Those parents are responsible for supporting them, not you. Emily looked at me seriously. Mrs. Morrison, I want you to understand something. You're not the bad person here. You're not abandoning anyone. You're setting boundaries that should have been set years ago. I felt tears prick my eyes. Then why do I feel so guilty? Because you're a mother. Because you love your daughter. Because society tells women, especially mothers, that we're supposed to sacrifice endlessly without complaint. She reached across the desk, squeezed my hand. But you're also a person, and you deserve to be treated with respect. The hearing was set for February 22nd, 1 month away, 30 days to prepare for the moment I'd face my daughter in court. 30 days to wonder if I was doing the right thing. 30 days to wait and see if love could survive the truth. The weeks between the lawsuit filing and the hearing were the longest of my life. Each day felt like walking through water, slow, heavy, exhausting. Emily prepared our case with military precision. She requested all of Claire's financial records, bank statements showing the deposits I'd made, credit card bills I'd paid, the lease agreement with my name as the sole guarantor, every piece of evidence that proved I'd been supporting her for years. The judge needs to see the full picture, Emily explained during one of our meetings. Not just that you gave money, but how much, how consistently, and how little appreciation you received. On February 3rd, I received a certified letter at my apartment. Inside was a check for $3,000 and a note in Claire's handwriting. Mom, here's the money for the court filing fees, like the judge will probably make me pay anyway. Hope you're happy. Don't contact me again. No signature, no love, no your daughter, just her first name Claire. I held that check for a long time, staring at her handwriting. It looked angry, sharp slanted, pressed hard into the paper. I thought about all the checks I'd written her over the years. Had I ever written them with anger? No. Always with love, even when it hurt. I tore the check into small pieces, dropped them in the trash. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about Sophie and Emma. Were they okay? Were they scared about moving? Did they wonder where I'd gone? At 2 a.m, I got up and went to my closet, pulled out a box from the top shelf, a box I hadn't opened in months. Inside were drawings the girls had made me, birthday cards, a clay handprint from Sophie's kindergarten class, a photo of Emma wearing my reading glasses, grinning at the camera. I sat on my bedroom floor, surrounded by these treasures, and cried. Not for Claire, for the little girls who were caught in the middle of something they didn't understand and couldn't fix. On February 10th, my phone rang at 9 p.m. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. Hello, is this Brittany Morrison? A woman's voice, cool and sharp. Yes, who's calling? This is Diana Palmer. We need to talk. I should have hung up. I should have blocked the number. Instead, I said, I don't think we have anything to discuss. Oh, we absolutely do. Her voice dropped, became almost venomous. What you're doing to my daughter-in-law is cruel and vindictive. Claire is falling apart. She's not eating, not sleeping. Jason is working himself to death trying to pick up extra shifts. And those little girls, your granddaughters, are terrified they're going to lose their home. Your daughter-in-law, the words came out before I could stop them. Interesting that you call her that. You've known her for 8 years. I gave birth to her. Well, clearly you're not acting like a mother. And clearly you don't know the whole story. I know enough. I know you're being petty about Christmas. I know you're punishing Claire because she didn't fawn all over you. I know you pulled your financial support with no warning, no compassion, no thought for the consequences. My hand tightened around the phone. Diana, you showed up at my daughter's house and took my seat at the table. You made her choose between us, and she chose you. So congratulations, you won. Now you get to help her. You get to pay her bills. You get to be the grandmother. I'm done. We can't afford... Then I guess you should have thought about that before you replaced me. You're a bitter, selfish woman. And you're a manipulator who swooped in and made my daughter believe I wasn't important. But here's the thing, Diana, when the money runs out, when Claire can't afford her lifestyle anymore, when reality finally hits, you're going to find out that being the favorite grandmother isn't about love. It's about convenience. And you're only convenient when you're useful. I hung up, blocked the number. Then I sat down because my legs were shaking. The phone rang again immediately. Different number. I answered. Mrs. Morrison, please don't hang up. Jason's voice desperate. Please just listen. I didn't hang up, but I didn't speak either. Claire she's not doing well. She stays in bed most of the day. She's not taking care of the girls properly. My mom had to come over yesterday to make them dinner because Claire wouldn't get up. He paused. I know what happened at Christmas was wrong. I should have said something. I should have stood up for you. I'm a coward. I've always been a coward. Jason, let me finish, please. His voice cracked. We're moving in with my parents next week. Their place is tiny. Sophie will sleep on the couch. Emma will be in our room. There's nowhere for the girls to play, no yard, no space. And it's temporary, my parents made that very clear. We have maybe 3 months to figure something else out. I closed my eyes, pictured Sophie on a couch, Emma confused and scared. I'm not calling to ask you to take us back, Jason continued. I know that ship has sailed. I'm just calling to say, you were right. About everything. Claire took you for granted. I enabled it. We built our entire life on your support and never once thought about what it cost you. He breathed deeply. And I'm sorry. I know it doesn't change anything, but I needed you to know. Jason, one more thing. The girls ask about you every single day. Sophie drew you a picture and put it by her bed. Emma cries at night and says she wants Grandma to read her stories. His voice broke completely. They miss you, and they don't understand why you're gone. I felt something crack open in my chest. I miss them too. Then maybe, I don't know, maybe sometime after all this legal stuff is over, maybe you could see them without Claire. Just you and the girls. I'd bring them to you. He cleared his throat. They shouldn't lose their grandmother because their mother made mistakes. We hung up a few minutes later. I sat in my dark apartment thinking about what he'd said. He was right. The girls shouldn't suffer for this. But how could I see them without Claire feeling betrayed? How could I be their grandmother without being her mother? I didn't have an answer. February 22nd dawned cold and bright. I woke at 5 a.m., couldn't fall back asleep. Got up, made coffee, stared at the suit I'd laid out the night before. Navy blue, professional, dignified. I wanted to look like someone who knew her own worth. Emily picked me up at 8:30. Ready? She asked. No, but let's go anyway. The courthouse was downtown, an imposing granite building with columns and too many steps. Inside, everything echoed footsteps, voices, the shuffle of papers. We went through security, took an elevator to the 3rd floor, walked down a corridor lined with courtrooms. Outside courtroom 3C, I saw them. Claire sat on a wooden bench with Jason beside her. Diana on her other side. Claire looked terrible, pale, drawn hair pulled back severely. She wore a black dress that hung on her like she'd lost weight. When she saw me, her eyes went hard. Mrs. Morrison. A young man in a brown suit approached. I'm David Torres, representing your daughter. I'd like to speak with you before we go in. Emily stepped between us. Attorney Chen representing Mrs. Morrison. Any communication goes through me. I just wanted to see if we could reach a settlement, avoid putting everyone through a trial. What kind of settlement? Mrs. Morrison agrees to pay 6 months of rent, $12,600 to allow my client time to relocate. In exchange, Mrs. Palmer withdraws the lawsuit and all parties go their separate ways. Emily looked at me. I shook my head. My client declines, Emily said. Torres's face hardened. Then we'll see you in there. At 10 a.m. sharp, the bailiff called us in. The courtroom was smaller than I'd expected. Wooden benches, a judge's bench at the front, fluorescent lights that buzzed faintly. We took our seats, Emily and I at one table, Claire and her lawyer at another. The judge entered. Older man, maybe 70, with thick-framed glasses and a serious expression. Judge Harold Brennan, according to the nameplate. All rise. We stood, sat again when told. The judge looked over some papers, then peered at us over his glasses. This is a civil suit filed by Claire Palmer against her mother, Brittany Morrison. Mrs. Palmer alleges that her mother created a state of financial dependence over many years and then abruptly terminated all support, leaving Mrs. Palmer and her family in an untenable situation. He looked at Claire's lawyer. Mr. Torres, you may present your case. Torres stood. Your Honor, my client is a mother of 2 young children. For the past 8 years, her mother has provided substantial financial assistance, paying rent, providing monthly stipends, covering expenses. Mrs. Palmer organized her entire life around this support. She made decisions about employment, housing, and childcare based on the understanding that her mother would continue helping. He painted a picture of Claire as a victim, a struggling mother abandoned by a vindictive parent. He showed photos of Sophie and Emma, played up the hardship, the betrayal. And then, Your Honor, without warning or discussion, Mrs. Morrison canceled everything. Credit cards stopped working. Rent payments ceased. All because of a perceived slight at a Christmas dinner. He shook his head sadly. My client is now facing eviction. Her credit is ruined, and her children are suffering all because her mother decided to punish her. Judge Brennan looked at Emily. Attorney Chen. Emily stood. She was calm, collected, powerful. Your Honor, my client is a 67-year-old woman living on a fixed income. For 8 years, she voluntarily, let me emphasize that word, voluntarily provided financial support to her adult daughter. She paid for a wedding. She sent monthly payments. She signed a lease in her own name and paid every cent of rent for 2 years. She walked to our table, picked up a folder. These are bank records documenting every transaction. $140,400 over 8 years, not including extras. Not including groceries, she bought gifts, she gave emergencies, she covered. She set the folder in front of the judge. My client could have said no at any time, but she didn't because she loved her daughter and wanted to help. Emily's voice sharpened. But love should not equal exploitation. Mrs. Morrison is not required legally or morally to support a 34-year-old woman with a working husband. She gave years of her life and her limited resources, and when she finally decided to stop, she had every right to do so. Judge Brennan nodded slowly. I'd like to hear from the parties themselves. Mrs. Palmer, please approach. Claire stood, walked to the witness stand. She looked small there, vulnerable, exactly what she wanted to look like. Mrs. Palmer, why are you suing your mother? Claire's voice was soft, shaky. Because she always helped me, for years, and then suddenly, without any warning, she stopped. She canceled my cards while I was at the grocery store. She terminated the lease without telling me first. She left me with no options, no time to prepare. My daughters are terrified. We're losing our home. And all because I made a mistake at Christmas. What mistake was that? We had a family dinner. My mother-in-law came from out of town. It was the first time she'd spent Christmas with us in years. I wanted it to be special for her. So She stopped, swallowed. There weren't enough seats, and I thought my mom would understand, but she didn't. She got angry and left. Did you explain this to your mother? I tried. She wouldn't listen. Judge Brennan made a note. Did your mother have any obligation to continue supporting you financially? Claire hesitated. She's my mother. That's not what I asked. Did you have a formal agreement? A contract? Any legal obligation? No, but thank you. You may step down. He looked at me. Mrs. Morrison, please approach. My legs felt weak as I walked to the witness stand. I sat down, gripped the armrest to keep my hands from shaking. Mrs. Morrison, why did you stop supporting your daughter? I looked at Claire. She was staring at the table, jaw clenched. Because she made me feel like I didn't matter, I said quietly. Because I stood in her hallway on Christmas Day with nowhere to sit while everyone else had a place at her table. Because she told me that she only invited people who really mattered, people who were her priority. And I realized I wasn't on that list. Is this about hurt feelings, about revenge? No, Your Honor, it's about dignity. I straightened in my chair. For 8 years, I gave everything I had. Time, money, energy, love. I did it gladly because she's my daughter, and I wanted her to be happy. But somewhere along the way, I stopped being a person to her. I became a resource, an ATM machine, someone she called when she needed something, but never when she just wanted to talk. My voice grew stronger. I don't know when it happened, but one day I looked up and realized that I'd given so much of myself that there was nothing left. I was lonely. I was invisible. I mattered to no one, not even my own daughter. So you cut off the money. I stopped enabling a situation that was unhealthy for both of us. I stopped letting my daughter believe that love means endless sacrifice without reciprocation. I stopped teaching my granddaughters that it's okay to use people. I looked directly at Judge Brennan. I don't regret helping Claire, but I also don't regret stopping. Because for the first time in 8 years, I'm choosing myself. And I'm not sorry for that. The courtroom was silent. Judge Brennan removed his glasses, cleaned them with a cloth from his pocket, put them back on. I've heard enough. I'll issue my ruling in 1 week. We stood as he left. I felt dizzy, unsteady. Emily held my arm as we walked out of the courtroom. Claire and her lawyer were already gone. 1 week later, on March 1st, Emily called me at 9 a.m. We won. I sat down hard on my couch. What we won? Completely. The judge dismissed the case. He ruled that you had no legal obligation to support your adult daughter, that all assistance you provided was voluntary, that you could terminate it at any time for any reason. She paused. And Brittany, he ordered Claire to pay the court costs. $3,000. I couldn't speak. Are you there? I'm here. My voice sounded far away. Claire has to pay? Yes, for filing a baseless lawsuit. The judge was, let's say he was not impressed with her case. I should have felt victorious. I should have felt validated. Instead, I felt hollow. What happens now? Now you're free. Legally, emotionally, financially, you're free from obligation. You can move forward with your life however you choose. We hung up. I sat in my apartment staring at nothing. Free. The word should have been beautiful. Instead, it felt like loss. March became April. April became May. 3 months passed without a word from Claire. I learned through Jason, who texted occasionally, that they'd moved in with his parents, that Claire had gotten a part-time job at a bookstore, that she'd applied for assistance for childcare, that they were looking at small apartments in cheaper neighborhoods. They were surviving, without me. I should have been happy about that. Instead, I felt like I was walking through fog, every day the same. Wake up, coffee, read, walk, dinner, sleep. My life felt empty in a way it never had before. Emily called me every week to check in. How are you doing? I'm fine, I'd say. No, you're not. She was right. I wasn't. On the afternoon of May 15th, my phone rang. Unknown number. I'd learned to screen calls, but something made me answer. Mrs. Morrison, a woman's voice, professional but concerned. Yes. This is Principal Martinez from Lincoln Elementary School. I'm calling because we have Sophie Palmer here in the nurse's office. She's had an incident. My heart stopped. Is she hurt? Not physically, but she's very upset. She's asking for you. We tried to contact her mother, no answer. Her father, no answer. Your name is listed as emergency contact number 3. I'm on my way. I took a cab faster than the bus. Arrived at Lincoln Elementary 23 minutes after the phone call. Ran into the building, found the office. I'm Brittany Morrison. I'm here for Sophie Palmer. The secretary led me down a hallway to the nurse's office. Through the door's window, I saw her, my Sophie, sitting on a cot, face red and swollen from crying, hugging herself. I opened the door. Sophie! She looked up, and the sound she made a sob that came from somewhere deep and broken. That sound nearly destroyed me. She ran to me, threw herself into my arms, clung to me like I was the only solid thing in the world. Grandma, you came. I held her. stroked her hair, let her cry against my shoulder while my own tears fell silent and steady. "I'm here, baby. I'm here now." Principal Martinez entered quietly. She was a woman in her 50s with kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. She nodded at me, then at the nurse. "Let's give them a few minutes." They left. I sat on the cot with Sophie in my lap, 8 years old but feeling so much smaller, so much more fragile than she should. When her sobs finally quieted, I pulled back gently, cupped her face. "Tell me what happened, sweetheart." She hiccuped, wiped her nose with her sleeve. "Mrs. Anderson, my teacher, she gave us an assignment. We were supposed to draw our family, a happy family doing something together." "Okay." "And I tried, Grandma. I really tried, but I couldn't." Fresh tears spilled down her cheeks. "Because we're not happy anymore. We live at Grandma Diana's house, but it's too small and Mom cries all the time, and Dad is never home and Emma has nightmares and I don't have anywhere to do homework and everything is wrong." She was gasping now, hyperventilating. "Breathe with me, Sophie. In through your nose, out through your mouth." We breathed together until she calmed. "And I started thinking about before," she whispered. "When we lived in the nice apartment and you used to visit and we'd make cookies and you'd read me stories. And I wanted to draw that. But I couldn't because you're not there anymore." She looked up at me with eyes too old for 8 years. "Why did you leave, Grandma? Why don't you love us anymore?" The question hit me like a physical blow. "Oh, baby. Oh, my sweet girl." I pulled her close again. "I never stopped loving you. Not for one single second." "Then why did you go away? How do you explain adult problems to a child? How do you tell an 8-year-old that her mother chose someone else, that love became obligation, that sometimes walking away is the only way to survive? Sometimes grown-ups have problems that are hard to understand," I said carefully. "Your mom and I had a disagreement, and I made a choice that I thought was best for me. But Sophie listened to me." I tilted her face up. "You and Emma, you two are not the problem. You two are the best things in my world, and I have missed you every single day." "Really? Really, truly?" She was quiet for a moment. "Then can you come back?" My heart cracked. "I don't know, honey. It's complicated." "Because of Mom?" "Yeah, because of Mom." Principal Martinez knocked entered. "Mrs. Morrison, do you have a moment?" I settled Sophie on the cot with a glass of water and stepped into the hallway. "This isn't the first time," Principal Martinez said quietly. "Sophie's been having difficulty for weeks, trouble concentrating, withdrawing from friends. Her grades have dropped. I've called Mrs. Palmer 3 times. She came in once, said everything was fine, that they were just going through a transition." "Did you mention these emotional outbursts?" "There have been others, smaller ones. Today was just... it all came out." She looked at me seriously. "Mrs. Morrison, I don't know what happened in your family, but that little girl needs stability. She needs someone who shows up. Her mother is overwhelmed. I'm not judging her. But Sophie needs more right now." She paused. "She needs you." When Jason arrived 40 minutes later, he looked haggard. Suit rumpled tie loose, running on coffee and stress. "Mrs. Morrison, thank you for coming." "Of course." He looked at Sophie through the window. She'd fallen asleep on the cot, exhausted from crying. "This can't keep happening." "No, it can't." We stood in uncomfortable silence. "Jason, I want to see the girls. Regularly. Without Claire. Is that possible?" He didn't hesitate. "Yes. Claire won't like it. Claire doesn't get a vote anymore. Not about this." His voice was firm in a way I'd never heard before. "Those girls need their grandmother, and I'm going to make sure they have you." 2 weeks later, I sat in Emily's office signing paperwork. "This is a petition for grandparent visitation rights," Emily explained. "You're requesting court-ordered visitation with Sophie and Emma. 2 visits per month minimum unsupervised once we establish a pattern. And Claire? She'll fight it. But given Sophie's documented distress at school plus Jason's support, we have a strong case." The hearing was scheduled for June 10th. Same courthouse, same judge. This time when I walked in, Claire looked different. Harder. She'd cut her hair short, wore minimal makeup, a simple dress from a department store instead of a boutique. She looked like someone who'd been surviving rather than living. She didn't look at me. Judge Brennan reviewed the petition. Mrs. Morrison is seeking visitation rights with her granddaughters. Mrs. Palmer, you object. Claire's new lawyer she'd fired Torres stood. Yes, Your Honor, Mrs. Morrison abandoned this family. She cut off financial support without warning, causing significant instability. Her presence would be disruptive. Disruptive. Judge Brennan looked over his glasses. According to this school report, one of the children had a severe anxiety attack in class. She was asking for her grandmother. The principal states that the child has been struggling emotionally for months. Emily stood. Your Honor, my client loves her granddaughters. She never intended to cut off contact with them. The financial dispute was between adults. The children shouldn't be weaponized. Mrs. Palmer. The judge looked at Claire. Are you using your daughters to punish your mother? Claire's face flushed. No, Your Honor. I'm protecting them from someone who hurt us. By hurt, you mean she stopped giving you money. It wasn't just money. She abandoned us when we needed her most. You're a 34-year-old woman with a husband. Your mother had no legal obligation to support you. His voice was stern. What I see here is a grandmother who wants contact with her grandchildren and a mother who's preventing that contact out of spite. That's not... I'm ordering supervised visitation. Mrs. Morrison will see her granddaughters twice per month, 4 hours per visit at a neutral location. A social worker will be present for the first 3 months. After that, if all goes well, visits will become unsupervised. He looked at Claire. You will cooperate with this order. If you attempt to prevent visitation or poison the children against their grandmother, I will hold you in contempt. Am I clear? Claire's lawyer whispered something to her. She nodded, jaw clenched. Yes, Your Honor. June 10th, 2:00 p.m. Liberty Park Supervised Visitation Area. I arrived 30 minutes early. Sat on a bench, hands clasped so tight my knuckles went white. A social worker young woman named Jennifer, clipboard in hand, introduced herself. Just act naturally, Mrs. Morrison. I'm here to observe, not to interfere. At 2:03 I saw them. Sophie and Emma walking toward me with Jason. Sophie saw me first and started running. Grandma? She crashed into me. Emma right behind her. I wrapped my arms around both of them, and we all cried happy tears this time. I missed you so much, Sophie said into my shoulder. I missed you more, I said. Impossible, Emma said, and we all laughed through our tears. We spent 4 hours in that park, playing on the swings, drawing with sidewalk chalk, eating ice cream that melted faster than we could eat it, talking about everything: school friends, Emma's loose tooth, Sophie's new favorite book. They told me about living with Grandma Diana, how her house smelled like mothballs, how there wasn't anywhere to play, how they shared one small bedroom. But Mom got a job, Sophie said proudly, at a bookstore. She smells like books when she comes home. And Dad has been taking us to the park on Saturdays, Emma added. Just us, no grown-ups except him. They were resilient, adapting, surviving. But I could see the strain underneath, the way Sophie still startled at loud noises, the way Emma clung a little too tight. When Jason came to pick them up at 600s, both girls hugged me like they'd never let go. When can we see you again? Sophie asked. 2 weeks, I promise. You won't disappear again. I knelt down, held her shoulders. Never again. Even if I can't see you every day, I'm still your grandma. That never changes. Okay? Okay? I watched them walk away, hands swinging between them and Jason. And for the first time in months, I felt something like hope. December 2026, 1 year after the Christmas that broke everything. The visits had become routine. Every other Saturday, supervised at first, then unsupervised when Jennifer reported that everything was proceeding beautifully. Sophie and Emma came to my apartment. We baked cookies, watched movies, did homework, talked about life. Claire and I never spoke. When I picked up the girls, Jason brought them down. When I dropped them off, he met me in the lobby. Claire stayed upstairs, invisible. I didn't know if she watched from the window. I didn't ask. The girls told me pieces of her life. She'd gotten promoted at the bookstore. They'd moved into a small 2-bedroom apartment on the other side of town. Money was still tight, but they were managing. Jason had gotten a raise. Claire had started therapy. Mom talks about you sometimes, Sophie said one Saturday while we were making gingerbread cookies. Oh, she says she made mistakes, that she wishes things were different. Sophie looked up at me with serious eyes. Do you wish things were different? I thought about it. Really thought. I wish the hurt hadn't happened. I said finally. I wish I'd been treated with respect. I wish your mom had valued me the way I valued her. I paused. But I don't wish I'd kept quiet. I don't wish I'd kept letting her use me, because then I'd still be invisible. And I'm not invisible anymore. You were never invisible to me, Sophie said. I hugged her. Thank you, baby. Christmas Eve. I was in my apartment making sugar cookies. The girls were coming over tomorrow morning. We'd established our own traditions now. Christmas morning with Grandma, afternoon with their parents. There was a knock at my door at 8 p.m. I opened it. Claire stood in the hallway. We looked at each other for a long moment. She looked different, older, yes, but also somehow more present. Like she'd been sleeping better, like some weight had lifted. Hi, Mom. Claire. Can I come in? I stepped aside. She entered slowly, looking around like she'd never been here before. In some ways, maybe she hadn't. Maybe she'd never really seen this place, seen me. I know I'm not supposed to be here, she said. Jason doesn't even know I came, but I needed to talk to you. Before Christmas. Before another year passes. I didn't speak, just waited. She sat on the couch. I sat in my chair. The distance between us felt like miles. I've been in therapy, she said, for 6 months now, working through a lot of things. She twisted her hands in her lap. My therapist asked me to write you a letter, to say all the things I never said. I wrote 17 drafts, threw them all away, because nothing I wrote felt like enough. Claire, please, let me finish. She took a shaking breath. What I did to you was unforgivable. Not just Christmas, though, that was horrible. Everything. 8 years of taking and never giving back. 8 years of treating you like a bank instead of a person. 8 years of forgetting that you had feelings, needs, a life of your own. Tears started down her cheeks. I was so entitled, so wrapped up in my own struggles that I never stopped to think about what it cost you. Not just the money, the emotional labor, the invisibility, the loneliness of loving someone who only calls when they need something. She looked at me, really looked at me. You deserved so much better than what I gave you. And I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I felt my own tears start. Why? My voice cracked. Why did you do it? Why did you make me feel so small? Because I was drowning, and instead of learning to swim, I just kept grabbing onto you and pulling you under with me. And when Diana came along, she made me feel like I was doing okay, like I was enough. She never asked about my finances or questioned my choices. She just praised me, and I liked that better than I liked facing the truth, which was that I was failing, that my marriage was built on your support, that I'd become completely dependent on you, and I resented you for it because it made me feel like a child. She wiped her face. So I pushed you away, made Diana the priority, convinced myself that you were the problem too, controlling, too involved, too much. But I wasn't too much, I said quietly. I was just there. I know. God, I know, she sobbed. And I threw you away like you were nothing, like you didn't matter, like all those years of sacrifice meant nothing. We sat in silence for a while. The old clock on my wall ticked steadily. I'm not asking you to forgive me, Claire said finally. I'm not asking for things to go back to how they were. I just needed you to know that I see it now. I see what I did, and I hate myself for it. I looked at my daughter, my beautiful, broken, finally aware daughter. I don't hate you, I said. I never hated you, but I can't be who I was before. That woman who gave everything and asked for nothing, she's gone. She had to die so I could survive. I know. And I can't promise we'll ever have what we had when you were young. Too much has happened. I know. But, I paused, choosing my words carefully. If you want to try to build something new, something based on mutual respect, on boundaries, on both of us being whole people, then maybe, slowly, we could try. She looked up, hope flickering in her eyes. Really? Really, but it would be different. I'm not your safety net anymore. I'm not your bank. I'm just your mother. A person who loves you but also loves herself. That's all I want. She stood uncertain. Can I hug you? I stood too. And when she wrapped her arms around me, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Like maybe, just maybe, I had my daughter back. Not the old Claire. Someone new. Someone who could see me. And maybe that was enough. I'm 69 years old now. I live alone in my rent-controlled apartment, but I'm not lonely anymore. Sophie and Emma come over every Saturday. We have our routines, our traditions, our inside jokes. They tell me about school, about their lives, about their dreams. And I listen. Really listen. Because that's what grandmothers do. Claire and I meet for coffee once a month. Sometimes it's awkward. Sometimes we run out of things to say. But we're trying. We're building something new from the rubble of what broke. She never asks me for money anymore. When they have struggles, and they do because life is hard, she and Jason figure it out together. They've learned to budget, to sacrifice, to prioritize. She's learning to stand on her own feet. And I'm learning to let her. This Christmas they invited me to dinner at their new apartment. Just family, the text said. I almost said no. The memory of last year's empty chair still hurt. But then Claire called. Mom, I know last Christmas I know I hurt you, but I want to try again. I want to do it right this time. There will be a chair for you, I promise. So I'm going. Tomorrow, Christmas Day, I'm bringing sweet bread, wine, and a heart that's learned to protect itself while still staying open to love. Because here's what I've learned in these 2 hard years. You can love someone and still walk away. You can be a mother without letting them destroy you. You can set boundaries without being cruel. You can let go without stopping to love. My name is no longer defined by how much I give or how useful I am. I am Brittany Morrison, a 69-year-old woman who chose herself when it mattered most. I lost my daughter for a while, lost my place at her table, lost the easy, comfortable relationship we'd had. But I found myself, found my dignity, found my voice. And I learned that sometimes losing is the only way to win. Sometimes the empty chair is exactly where you need to sit alone, uncomfortable, aching before you can stand up and walk toward something better. I'm not invisible anymore. I matter. And that truth, that simple, hard-won truth, was worth every single thing I lost to find it. My name is Brittany Morrison, and this is my story.